It was summer 1483. In the dimly lit chamber of the royal palace, a meeting shrouded in secrecy unfolded. Richard III, newly crowned yet already burdened by the weight of the crown, stood before John Howard, Duke of Norfolk, a man whose loyalty to the House of York was as unshakable as the walls of the Tower itself.
My king,
Howard began, his voice resolute yet tinged with urgency.
I have sworn to protect you with my life, and I will never waver, but I have also sworn to protect your brother and his children's, the boys whom you have declared illegitimate.
His brow furrowed in thought, Richard III remained silent, knowing the precarious nature of his reign.
They pose no threat to your rule, sire. Let me take them away from the intrigues of the English court. Allow them a life of peace in Europe, far from the burdens of royalty.
The king paced the room, the ghost of a kingdom's fate echoing each step.
You speak of a great risk, Lord Howard. The existence of my nephews could be a rallying call for my enemies.
Lord Howard knelt, his loyalty unwavering.
I shall arrange it with utmost discretion. Not even the whisper of a nightingale shall escape our circle. I will swear an oath of secrecy upon my life and those of my most trusted men. The princes will vanish from history, their whereabouts known to none but us.
Richard III, after a moment of silent contemplation, finally nodded.
Lord Howard, listen well. Remove the boys from the tower and guard this secret with utmost vigilance, shielded from all eyes and ears at any cost. Furthermore, ensure that you place 2 other boys within the tower walls as their replacements. Take every necessary measure and spare no effort to ensure that no one acquainted with my nephews gains proximity to these substitutes.
Lord Howard swore an oath in that solemn chamber and bound himself to absolute secrecy. The fate of the young princes was sealed, not by the sword, but by a promise to shield them from a world that had already taken too much. As Howard departed, the weight of the promise settled upon his shoulders. He knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger and sacrifice, but for the innocent princes and his love of King Edward, he would walk it till the end. Lord John Howard swiftly exited the royal palace in the dark of the night, casting his sight to the dim lighting of the Tower of London. A group of 4 young knights, all bound by their oath of secrecy and loyalty, waited for him at the entrance to the palace. Among them was John de la Pole, the Earl of Lincoln, and the deposed Edward's first cousin. At only 23 years old, he carried an air of seriousness about their mission. Another was the 25-year-old Sir Thomas Fitzgerald of Laca, the brother of the influential Irish Earl of Kildare. Completing the group were Henry and Thomas Percy, 2 younger cousins to the Earl of Northumberland. Their eyes gleamed with unwavering determination. Time was of the essence. Fearing King Richard might reconsider his decision, they hastened through the dimly lit corridors of the tower to reach the young princes. First, they approached Prince Edward, the deposed Edward V. In a hushed voice, Howard imparted the gravity of their situation.
You must swear, young Edward, to keep your identity hidden until your uncle's reign ceases, and at least until you turn 17.
Edward's eyes, wide with fear and understanding, nodded in silent agreement. John de la Pole and Thomas Fitzgerald solemnly pledged their allegiance to Edward. They would be his silent protectors, ensuring his safety in Ireland or wherever fate might lead them should Richard III fall from power. Carefully, they trimmed Edward's majestic golden hair, disguising his regal identity to make him appear like an ordinary boy. They promptly guided him to a ship headed towards Ireland. As the moment arrived to say goodbye to the young prince, Richard of Shrewsbury, it was evident that he appeared significantly older than his tender age of 9. Howard knelt before him, assuring him of his brother's safety.
Live fully and happily, young Richard,
he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. To the Percy brothers, he entrusted the most solemn duty.
Swear to protect your prince, educate him as befits a prince, and keep his true identity veiled from the world until he is 17.
The Percy brothers vowed to guard Richard with their lives, to guide him to his aunt in Burgundy, or to reunite him with Edward through the Earl of Kildare when the time is right. They disguised the young prince and led him to St. Catherine's dockyard, where a separate ship awaited to sail for Boulogne. As the ships disappeared into the night, Lord Howard remained alone on the dock, his heart heavy with the weight of his promise. He whispered a prayer into the cool night air, entrusting the young princes to the protection of the divine. The prince's fate rested in the hands of these silent guardians, their unwavering loyalty. After ensuring the prince's safe escape, Lord John Howard returned to the Tower of London under the cloak of night. His heart was heavy, burdened with a secret that could change the course of history. In the Tower's cold, echoing chambers, Lord Howard's men introduced him to two young boys chosen for their resemblance to the princes. In the dim light of a secluded room within the Tower of London, Lord John Howard sat before the boys, his expression blending solemnity and kindness.
"Boys,"
he began, his voice gentle,
"you're about to undertake a service of great importance to the king and this kingdom."
He looked into their eyes, seeing their mix of curiosity and apprehension.
"Your time in the Tower will be safe and comfortable, I assure you."
Howard continued, offering them a reassuring smile. To the guards, he commanded with unyielding authority,
"These boys are now under the king's protection. Allow no one, not even those familiar with the princes, to approach them."
The Tower, once filled with the innocent laughter of the young princes, now resonated with an eerie silence. The boys' seclusion fueled rumors among the courtiers and servants. Once a trusted physician to the princes, Dr. Argentine found his entry barred, his frustrations spilt over to Dominic Mancini, an Italian observer who noted in his chronicles,
"The princes, once free in their royal playground, are now hidden as if swallowed by the very shadows of the tower."
Interestingly, Dominic Mancini's writing is our only contemporary record of the princes, and the existing copy was only found in 1934 in France, outside of England. For some reason, there seemed to be a systematic removal of any records relating to the young princes in Tudor England. Meanwhile, the Duke of Buckingham, Henry Stafford, saw an opportunity to advance his ambitions in the unfolding events. He approached Elizabeth Woodville, voicing concerns about the prince's well-being to gain her support.
"We must save your boys from Richard's clutches,"
he declared, promising a union between Elizabeth of York and Henry Tudor as a symbol of a united opposition. Unbeknownst to Elizabeth, Buckingham had a darker motive. Upon gaining access to the Tower, he discovered the truth about the substitute boys. Fearing that their exposure would weaken the resolve of Elizabeth Woodville, he coldly murdered them to ensure their silence, thus perpetuating the mystery of the prince's fate. Buckingham's actions set the stage for his rebellion against Richard III, a calculated uprising driven by his desire for power. As the rebellion unfolded, an unforeseen twist left Buckingham exposed. Henry Tudor, the Lancastrian claimant, failed to arrive at Plymouth, possibly thwarted by a storm or decided on a calculated retreat. Lord Howard, upon learning of Buckingham's heinous act, the murder of the innocent substitutes in the Tower, led the royal forces to suppress the rebellion. His heart ached with the dual burden of avenging the slain boys and upholding his unwavering loyalty to the crown. In the wake of the failed uprising, Buckingham met his end without trial, a swift and brutal reminder of the cost of betrayal. The enduring mystery of the princes resurfaced almost 3 centuries later, capturing the world's imagination. During the reign of King George II, the discovery of 2 skeletons of young boys beneath a staircase in the Tower sparked widespread speculation. Although traditional history points these skeletons to the 2 young princes, could these be the remains of the unfortunate substitutes, their own tragic story lost in the sands of time? Thank you for joining us for the first video in this series on the princes in the towers. Inspired by Philippa Langley's latest documentary offering additional evidence on the princes in the towers, we would like to follow this video by exploring 3 historical debates. The first is the story of the surprising reconciliation between Richard III and Elizabeth Woodville in England. What or who gave the Dowager Queen confidence to leave her sanctuary and rejoin court until Richard and Lord Howard met their end at the Battle of Bosworth? The second was the different debates around the Lambert-Simnel Rebellion in 1487 and whether Edward V participated, as suggested by Philippa in her documentary. And lastly, the Perkin-Warbeck Rebellion and the different historical questions everyone had, starting with the almost unconditional support from Margaret of Burgundy to the incredibly generous treatment of Warbeck by both James IV of Scotland and Henry VII before his final attempted escape and execution. Please, join us and help us explore these enigmatic events in English history that have shrouded themselves in mystery for centuries.